Hi everyone, Tim Faulkner here with Zach Bauer, Head of Venom Production Unit Australian Reptile Park. And today we're talking and walking you through what it is to produce snake venom for the production of anti-venom. Now the Reptile Park has been in the business of saving lives, human lives, for the last 50 years. We're the sole supplier of terrestrial snake venom in Australia. We save about 300 lives every year and about 20,000 since the 1950s when anti-venom became a process and a production. Now, understanding that things are very strange at the moment with everything that's going on in the world, but for Zach, day to day, he cares and milks venomous snakes. That can't stop. The husbandry of the snakes can't stop. The care of the snakes can't stop. And the need for anti-venom doesn't stop. So let's go through it. So we've got 4 snakes today, and there's 5 major groups that we keep and milk. They need different anti-venoms. So today we've got a tiger snake, a king brown, a mulga snake, a death adder, and a taipan. Now 3 of them are number 4, 5, and 6 for the strongest venom on earth. The king brown doesn't rank in the top 20, but what it lacks in toxicity, it makes up for in volume. So this is a mainland tiger snake. That has the 4th strongest venom of any snake on earth. But let me tell you, they're puppy dogs. They bite a number of people each year, and they can back that bite up, but they're quite an easy to work with snake. Now, what Zach has just done, let's pause there for 1 minute, mate. What he's just done is actually held the snake and he's gone through the dangerous part, which is he's had a snake nice and quiet, nice and calm. He's just put it onto this mat, and on the mat there's actually the tiniest little bit of a sticky adhesive, and it just means the snake's not all slippery. So then he's used Grandma's potato masher, and he very gently, this is weighted, he very gently just sits that onto the snake's head, just to put a bit of weight on there, to which he can come up behind and grab the back of the big triangular head. Now again, that's the world's 4th most venomous snake, and this cool cat makes it look very easy, but he milks 250 venomous snakes every week. It's like driving your car. He's never been bitten by a snake and he's never had a car accident. Both are avoidable if you're respectful and know what you're doing. Let's watch now. So what we've got here is a little glass vial and a plastic filament over the top. Now that filament, the snake needs to bite into to actually, so it sinks its fangs in, it lifts the gums back, and it will deliver its venom. So watch this. And while he's nice and safe there, look here. That yellow substance is the venom. There's enough in there to kill somewhere between 5 and 10 grown adults. Now the venom glands, please hold him nice and still, Zach. The venom glands are this swelling, that mass up on top of the head. So the venom's delivered from there to hollow fangs. That's a really good milking. Nice and easy for the snake. Thank you. And the benefit to snake is that every time they're milked, it goes back up to its environment now and it gets fed. We always feed after the milking, because if we fed before, you would end up with a scenario where the snake's given all its venom into the food rather than us to save human lives. Now we'll move on to the next snake in a second, but tiger snakes are found basically from along the east coast of Australia, down along the south coast, over to Western Australia and inclusive of Tasmania. They vary quite significantly in colour, from deep black to blues and greys and other colours. Really strong venom, and a consistent thing between most Australian snakes. And Australia has 10 out of 10 of the world's most venomous snakes. That doesn't mean we have the highest death rate. Like, there's only 3 to 5 deaths in Australia on a bad year. There's 250,000 snake bite deaths throughout the world every year. So our snakes are really venomous. Now, I like to think of a simple explanation that why do we have such venomous snakes? And I believe that a part of it is that Australia is very remote, very rugged. It's a harsh environment. And over thousands and thousands of years, snakes have had to develop a really strong venom here because food doesn't come along that often. Remembering that their venom is for food. It wasn't made to bite humans. So you need a really strong venom, because if a rat's only going to come past once every month, you need to make sure that your venom is going to work, and therefore the snakes with the strongest venom are the ones that survive. Now, have a look at this. This is when it gets real. Now that is the 2nd largest venomous snake in the world. That's a king brown snake or a mulga snake. Really common snake throughout arid interior of Australia, and they're a big reptile eater. Now, I'll be quiet for a sec. Let's watch Zach pin this. Yep, well done, mate. And we just restrain the end of the snake so that it doesn't hurt itself. All right, let's come in. He's got an open mouth gape. Watch this. Whack. Woohoo! So look at that. That's a pretty good yield. They can give quite a lot more. But you know, while we've got this snake here too, I realise it looks brown and it's venomous. But just have a look at it. I mean, this is a supreme hunter in the Australian outback. We don't have, you know, too many predators out there. And so a snake like this, it really hunts the biggest of the goannas, the biggest of the other snakes. And it is quite a serious, it feeds upon other snakes. Its venom glands, again, has that classical venomous snake, triangular head. It's got 2 fangs in now, and something that's interesting with king browns is, and I mean, Zach, why don't you want to get bitten by a king brown?
Just because they're not going to let go. So you can see there, that's just all him holding on. That'd be a very bad time.
A very bad time. So the thing with KBs is, most snakes will bite and release. When a king brown bites its prey, or us in a defensive bite, it will hold on, exactly like you can see there now. So Zach's actually got to be really delicate, and the best of care goes into these snakes. Now, for now, the worst thing that could possibly happen is he breaks a fang. It's bad for the snake and it's bad for venom production. So actually just gently we'll try and take an opportunistic moment when the snake will let go. And Zach, what's it like, I mean, holding a king brown to a tiger snake? Tell us the difference.
Oh, the weight and strength in these things is unbelievable. They just, nothing compared to a tiger.
Nothing compared to a tiger? And you know, most years, no one dies from a king brown or a mulga snake bite. They do come in contact with people out in arid Australia, but the reality is that they're in quite remote areas. And, you know, there's such a stigma about everyone's got a story of Uncle Bobby, you know, that the snake chased him for 100 metres. It doesn't happen. I've actively pursued snakes in the bush my whole life. I've never been chased by one. The reality is normally, and not always, but a lot of bites occur from people trying to catch the snake or kill the snake, and it backfires. And the other bites are with things like our next snake that it's accidentally trodden on while bushwalking. Or the reality is, when you corner a snake, intentionally or accidentally, that is when it will defend itself. But venom is very costly to produce for the snake. It doesn't want to waste it on a human. Now, most snakes will actually give a dry bite, whack, which means a dry bite is that they haven't put their venom in, they haven't injected venom. They don't want to waste it. So they do everything they can. Normally, the snake will flare up a bit and turn sideways. And that's it saying, please leave me alone, I'm bigger than I look. If that fails, the snake will then attack and bite, but normally it's a dry bite. If that fails, then the snake will follow through with venom. Now, king browns don't rank in the top 20 for toxicity, okay? But their venom is still very strong. And what they lack in toxicity, they make up for in volume, the amount that they put into you. Ooh, have a look at this. Now, this is called a death adder. Funny story about it is that death adders used to be called deaf adders, D-E-A-F. But at some point in the last 100 years, people thought their name sounded better as a death adder, which is a far scarier sounding snake. Now, these are quite a very calm and relaxed snake normally, but they hide. They live right throughout Australia, different species, but they hide under leaf litter. And I mean, Zach, you tell us, you've been holding the last 2 snakes, which look bigger and scarier, by the tail. Why aren't you holding that by the tail?
These things are just way too quick to be doing that. As soon as you touch anywhere near that tail, near that quarter of lure, just wacko, they just turn on themselves and they're incredibly fast.
So Zach just mentioned them too, the cord lure. So on the snake's tail, it has a white tip. Now, I mentioned about it burying down in the leaf litter. And what they do is, so they use that tail and they pretend it's a worm. They use it as a lure. And a little bird or a frog or a lizard comes along and tries to eat the worm, and guess who eats the bird or frog? The adder. Now, they are incredibly dangerous for Zach. Probably one of the worst species to work with, in that their strike is lightning. Their fangs and jaws are a little more pliable and they can really work them backwards. Now, let's come in close for this because adders normally give a really good bite and they've got really long fangs. Whack! That's a good bite. And that's a really, look at this, we've got almost the same amount of venom as we just had from the mulga snake, the king brown. That is deadly. That's the 5th most toxic snake on earth. And these ones are, are the snakes where if a bushwalker is going to be bitten, realistically, this is the snake to do it because it won't try and get away. It holds its position because it believes it's camouflaged. It's a slow-bodied snake. Just look how thick it is. Okay, so you can picture snakes like cheetahs. Look at a cheetah and look at a Tasmanian devil. The cheetah has long legs, a thin body, it's made for speed. A devil has a round body and short legs. It's made for endurance. It can run really far, but not fast. When you look at snakes, you can imagine the same type locomotion. So a really thick-bodied snake like the adder or the king brown, mulga snake, you can look at them and recognise that they're not very fast snakes. Now, same as a tiger snake. This next snake that's coming out has the third strongest venom on Earth. Its very close relative is called the inland taipan or fierce snake, and it has the strongest venom of any snake on Earth, and it lives in Central Australia. We can't milk them because they're still too dangerous for the anti-venom production program. So this snake is a coastal taipan. Now coastal taipans for Zach are undoubtedly the most dangerous snake to work with. They're long-bodied, they're fast, they're aggressive, their venom is incredibly strong, and they're not afraid to use it. How you feeling, mate? Have I talked it up enough?
Yeah, a bit nervous. Bit of a sweat.
I better change my gloves too. Take one pair off. That's the easiest way to protect between different snakes. For the ones you touch, is just wear a couple of pairs of gloves and take them off as you go. So coastal taipans are actually responsible for, one of the snakes that's responsible for the most deaths in Australia and certainly bites. They're found throughout the coastal regions from northern New South Wales, along the coast up to Cape York or northern Queensland. So we're going to grab this one out. And you look at Zach, cool as a cucumber. This is what he does. It's taken many, many years for him to be able to work with snakes. And if you watch the snakes, they respond to him. And what I mean by that is, you've got a nice calm snake. This is an incredibly aggressive snake, but each time Zach's process is calm. Yeah. Well done, mate. So each time, he's talking to the snakes, basically through contact. They can't hear, but they can feel what he's doing. They can sense if he's nervous, if he's jittery. Now come in close for this. This is the ultimate bite. Zach's using that finger actually so the snake sees it. Wow. Look at that. That is an extraordinary amount of venom. Okay, mate, we won't keep you there longer than you need to be. So there's enough venom in there to kill 20 grown adults. That's just extraordinary. The other snakes we milked also had more venom than they gave. But again, they don't want to deliver it all. It's very costly for them to produce. The taipan holds nothing back. It's one of those snakes that when it bites, it means it. And that's why anti-venom is so important, because that species in the wild, when it bites someone, it means it. It delivers venom. And they do come in contact with people, really commonly farmers, in areas where sugarcane is grown. Wow. Look at that. And if you've noticed too, the venom is different colours. I think the tiger snake was yellow, the adder was white or clear, and this is clear. And that's just different proteins in the venom. So there we go. Look at that. Is that tiger?
KB.
KB. So we've got king brown and taipan. That's just different proteins in the venom. And I'll just mention really quickly on the venom that Australian snakes typically have one thing in common. They all have really strong neurological effects. Basically, they stop your brain from talking to your body and you can slip into paralysis as your body shuts down. But they also have different effects. So a tiger snake, its venom will also thicken your blood. And you're likely, if anything, to have a heart attack because your blood's like a thick soup moving around your body. Taipans will thin your blood. You're likely to have an aneurysm or a stroke. And so there are really different compounds to different venoms. Twofold. First of all, the snake needs to kill its prey, immobilise it rapidly. And again, I mentioned in Australia, prey doesn't come along that often. The stronger your venom, the more likely is you get your prey. Secondarily, we chop our food up and we take it into bite-sized pieces and then we swallow it for digestion. Snakes swallow their food whole and they're cold-blooded, but they keep their body warmed up by their environment, where the sun is or under a rock. So what they risk is that the food begins to rot in their belly. And that would kill them. So the venom, first of all, kills the prey, but then it begins to break down the prey and digest it from the inside out. Now I'm going to give everyone a virtual clap for Zach. Well done, mate. Every day, this is what he does. And I remember 5 or 6 years ago, Zach said, I want to work with venomous snakes. He'd never held one, and now he's a world authority on it. So good on you, mate. Will we have a few questions?
Yeah, we've got a few questions coming in. People want to know, are all snakes venomous?
No. Are all snakes venomous? No, not all snakes are venomous. So you've got pythons and boas, to draw 2 examples, that aren't venomous. You've got a specific family called venomous snakes. Now, a king brown or a mulga snake will wrap its prey up and constrict it a little bit. But typically pythons or boas, when they grab their prey, they're constrictors. So they suffocate or crush their prey. Whereas venomous snakes are a totally different thing altogether.
Okay, and just for the people who missed it at the start, why do we milk snakes?
Yep. So the Australian Reptile Park has been producing venom for the production of anti-venom since the 1950s. Australia has 10 out of 10 of the world's most venomous snakes. Whilst bites are infrequent, they do happen. And we proudly save about 300 lives. You know, parents, grandparents, kids, it's a really important role. Those people would die without any venom. So what we do is we actually maintain a population of snakes that Zach cares for and milks, and we extract that venom and send it off to the scientists who turn it into anti-venom. 300 lives a year we save, and we're very proud of that. And since the 1950s, the Australian Reptile Park has saved around 20,000 lives in Australia. It's a really significant part of what we do. You know, a young bloke like Zach, that was his passion. He wanted to work with venomous snakes and save lives. Not many people can want to do that and be good at it, but it's a big part of what the park has done for all of history.
How many snakes do we milk here at the park?
Take it away, mate.
We keep roughly 250 of the most toxic snakes on the planet to produce enough venom for the anti-venom program. So yeah, roughly around that 250 mark.
And what species do we have?
So we keep 5 main species. That's your eastern brown, your coastal taipan, your tiger snake, your death adder, and the king brown. And that covers all of our Australian venomous snakes.
How often are the snakes milked at the park?
So all of our snakes are milked on a fortnightly rotation. That way it gives them enough time to relax, get some food into them, and kind of forgive us for the last time.
So does it hurt the snake when we milk them?
Well, no. No, the reality is, and I went through this earlier when you watch Zach, he makes what he does look easy. And that's not easy. The reality is he's very in tune with the snake. Where he holds it, if you hold it by the tail tip, it'll freak out and it'll hurt itself. You need to hold it mid-body like it does, and that comes with practice and time and training. And so, look, if I grab that taipan, which I'm very rusty on and haven't for a very long time, you would see a very different snake than you would with Zach. With Zach, it's an instantaneous process. It's out. It's in good connection with him. It can feel him. He's pinned it and milked it, and it's a matter of a minute. And what he does then is backs it up with a food item. So it's not like there's a reward in it that's food, but the reality is you have to see that the husbandry for them is well catered for, really well catered for. They live splendid lives. They always have food, they always have water, they always have shelter, and they're free of threats. In the wild, you know, a process like we do milking there, and snakes are under constant. There's birds of prey, there's dingoes, nowadays there's urban sprawl and cars and all these different things. And the reality is, like us, they're used to a little bit of pressure. And the reality is that saving lives like they do is a really good, I guess, a thing that we're very proud of in terms of what it brings to Australia. And for the snakes, I mean, what's your oldest snake?
I think we've got a taipan at about 23 years old.
A taipan that's 23 years old. What's their lifespan in the wild?
15 to 16 max.
15 to 16 max. So to give you an idea of the type environment that the snakes live in, we've got a snake up there that's 7 or 8 years older than what it would live to in the wild. And so the reality is, no, it doesn't hurt them. There's a bit of pressure for them momentarily, and they go back into the wonderful care of people like Zach.
How much venom does it take to make one dose of anti-venom?
That's a really good question. Yeah, one milking of a snake does not equal a vial of anti-venom. So Zach's got to milk a lot of taipans. Do you know what the number is?
For tyres, it's roughly 20 snake to 1 vial of anti-venom.
Yep, so 20 milkings to 1 vial of anti-venom. And here's the thing, if someone gets bitten, what's the record for Thai anti-venom? Is it?
It's double figures.
Double figures. So what that means is, someone's been bitten by a taipan and needed over 10 vials of anti-venom. You're up now at 200 milkings Zach had to do to produce that person's treatment. So it's not an easy thing, and there's still things that come into it. Like, again, with Zach's professionalism, is that he gets a really good yield of venom. You can, if you're not trained in it properly, you can milk the snake and get really small doses every time. You need a lot more milkings to make a vial of antivenom. But on a normal platform, for taipans, you've got 20 milkings per vial of antivenom.
Some people are asking, what do snakes eat?
All the snakes that we saw today eat different things. So the king brown or mulga snake largely predates reptiles. It eats snakes or goannas. The tiger snake is a really big frog eater. The taipan loves rats and mice. And death adders are a little versatile. They use that lure. And whether a frog comes in or a lizard or a bird, it's not fussy. So the reality is things like pythons have heat sensing pits because they mainly predate mammals. But each snake's different. It depends on where it lives, and often it lives, and where it lives is governed by its food source. And that's just how the greater ecology works. How about one more question?
What should you do if you see a snake in the wild?
Good question. So, they make bandages for everyone nowadays. See the little rectangle? When it's the right pressure, it turns to a square. It's that easy, whether it's for a sprain or a snake bite. Now, let's just say that I've just been bitten, and it will normally, if you're bitten on your neck, you don't need a bandage. You're in real strife. But that normally doesn't happen. So if you're bitten, it'll normally be on your foot or your hand. So I've just been bitten on my hand. First thing I need to do, stay calm. It's so hard to do, I get it, right? It sounds silly. I've just been bitten by a snake and you're telling me not to panic. If you panic and you can't stay calm and you elevate your heartbeat, your heart rate, you are pumping that venom around your body so much quicker. If your car is 300 metres away, you must walk. If you run that distance, you are shortening your life expectancy rapidly. So I've just been bitten. I've radioed Zach. I've sat down and I've said, Zach, I've been nabbed by a snake. I'm okay. I'm putting my bandage on, but can you come and help me? And he arrives and I've been bitten on the finger. So we started the bite. He's going to turn those rectangles to squares. It's about the same pressure as you would for a sprained ankle. We want to leave my fingers exposed because this bandage could be on for hours, days even, depending on where I am. And we need to see how blue my fingers are going. We want the pressure just right because if my fingers go too blue, I'll have other complications. So right now we're trying to trap the venom down. We want to stop blood flow, but not too much. So don't worry about my clothing, you go straight over it. Come all the way up to the top, and if you've got some bandage left over, you just go around a few times around that area. That'll do for now. And then we go, so once we're here, the next thing is, if you don't have a sling, you don't need one, undo your shirt, pop your arm in. And now, Zach, the big lad he is, carries me to the hospital. Get to hospital. In Australia, if your kid's been bitten by a snake, don't wait to see if it hurts. Put a bandage on, get to hospital. Most of our snakes are venomous. Doesn't mean you're going to die. So I don't want people to take shovels out and do what we used to do with snakes because we have some venomous snakes. The reality is bites are really infrequent. With anti-venom, it is incredibly successful. Put the bandage on, get to hospital, and you should be okay. Well, that's it for us today. Thank you very much for joining and tuning in to the Australian Reptile Park. It's lovely for us to be able to show this to you at a time like now. Zach's here doing this wonderful work, the hero he is. He can't stop milking snakes and he can't stop looking after the snakes. So thanks for tuning in. Over and out. Bye everyone.
Catch us.